12 missing soldiers, 15 kilometers deep behind enemy lines. Night operation. Solo rescue mission. Captain Mitchell had to achieve the impossible. Because the military code was clear, leave no man behind. In the rugged mountains of eastern Afghanistan, Captain Sarah Mitchell faced the most difficult decision of her 15-year military career. Alpha Squad's 12-man Special Operations team had vanished 18 hours ago in hostile territory. Their last radio contact had been a desperate transmission at 1,430 hours. This is Alpha Lead. Heavy contact. We are pinned down. GPS coordinates. Then nothing but static. Captain Sarah Mitchell, a decorated officer with 3 combat deployments and over 200 successful missions, had earned her reputation as someone who brought everyone home. Her specialty was high-risk extractions and covert operations that other commanders considered impossible. But this mission would test every skill she had developed during her distinguished military career. The missing Alpha Squad consisted of some of the military's most elite personnel. Staff Sergeant Marcus Thompson, a 12-year veteran with expertise in explosives and urban warfare. Sergeant First Class David Rodriguez, a communication specialist who could establish contact under any circumstances. Corporal Lisa Chen, a medic whose field medicine skills had saved dozens of lives during previous deployments. Private First Class James Wilson, a sniper whose marksmanship abilities were legendary throughout the special operations community. The remaining 8 team members represented years of specialized training and combat experience. Each soldier possessed unique capabilities that made them invaluable during complex operations. Their loss would be devastating not only to their families but to the entire special operations capability of their unit. Major Harrison, the battalion commander, had delivered the grim assessment during the evening briefing. Mitchell, Alpha Squad's GPS beacon went dark 18 hours ago. Satellite imagery shows significant enemy movement in their last known position. Air support is unavailable due to weather conditions. Artillery support would risk hitting our own people. This is a single-person infiltration and extraction mission. The tactical situation was brutally simple. Alpha Squad had been conducting a reconnaissance mission to identify enemy supply routes when they encountered a larger force than intelligence reports had indicated. Their last transmission suggested they were under attack from multiple directions with limited ammunition and no clear escape route. Weather conditions made the rescue operation even more challenging. A severe storm system had moved into the region, creating zero visibility for aircraft and making helicopter operations impossible. Ground-based heavy equipment couldn't navigate the mountainous terrain. The mission would require individual infiltration using stealth and night vision technology. Sir, Mitchell had responded during the briefing, what's the timeline for this operation? How long do we estimate Alpha Squad can hold their position? Mitchell, based on their last ammunition report and the enemy forces we're tracking, they have maybe 6 hours before their position becomes unsustainable. If we don't extract them by dawn, they'll either be captured or killed. Mitchell understood the mathematics of the situation. 12 soldiers, 15 kilometers behind enemy lines, surrounded by hostile forces with superior numbers and local terrain knowledge. Weather preventing air support. Limited time frame. Solo extraction mission through territory controlled by enemies who knew every trail, cave, and hiding place. The equipment loadout for her mission reflected the desperate nature of the operation. Advanced night vision goggles that could penetrate complete darkness. Suppressed weapons that would minimize sound signature during movement through hostile territory. Emergency medical supplies for treating wounded personnel during extraction. Communication equipment with enough range to contact base command and coordinate evacuation procedures. Mitchell's personal equipment included everything necessary for extended operations in harsh mountain conditions. Cold weather gear rated for sub-zero temperatures. High-energy food supplies that would sustain her during 12 hours of continuous physical exertion. Water purification tablets that would allow her to use local water sources. Navigation equipment that would function even if GPS signals were jammed or blocked. The mission planning phase revealed the full scope of challenges Mitchell would face during the extraction operation. Enemy forces had established checkpoints along major routes leading into and out of the target area. Patrol patterns covered most approaches that conventional forces would use for rescue operations. Communication intercepts suggested enemy commanders understood that rescue operations were likely and had prepared accordingly. Intelligence reports indicated approximately 200 enemy combatants operating in the region with advanced weapon systems, including mortars and rocket-propelled grenades. Their communication capability suggested coordination with larger enemy units that could provide reinforcement if American rescue operations were detected. At 2,200 hours, Mitchell began her infiltration into enemy territory. The approach route had been selected to avoid known enemy positions while providing cover and concealment during movement through dangerous terrain. She would travel on foot across 15 kilometers of mountainous territory using natural features to mask her movement from enemy observation. The first phase of infiltration required crossing 5 kilometers of open terrain where enemy patrols conducted regular sweeps. Mitchell used advanced camouflage techniques and movement timing that minimized her visibility while maintaining steady progress toward Alpha Squad's last known position. Night vision technology provided significant advantages during movement through complete darkness, but the technology also had limitations that could prove fatal if enemies possessed similar capabilities or used countermeasures designed to neutralize American technological advantages. Mitchell's route planning included alternate paths and emergency procedures that would be implemented if she encountered unexpected enemy forces during infiltration. Each potential contact scenario had been rehearsed mentally with appropriate responses that would maximize her survival probability while maintaining mission focus. The mountainous terrain provided natural concealment but also created physical challenges that tested Mitchell's endurance and navigation skills. Steep climbs required careful route selection that balanced speed with noise discipline. Rocky surfaces could cause equipment noise that would alert enemy forces to American presence in their operational area. 3 hours into the infiltration, Mitchell detected the first signs of Alpha Squad's presence. Faint thermal signatures visible through advanced optics suggested recent human activity in areas that should have been uninhabited according to intelligence reports. Shell casings and equipment fragments indicated recent combat activity consistent with Alpha Squad's known weapons and gear. Mitchell activated her emergency communication system and transmitted on Alpha Squad's designated frequency using protocols that would identify her as a friendly rescue element. Alpha Lead, this is Guardian Angel. Confirm your status and position. I am conducting solo extraction operation. The response came immediately, crackling through static and interference. Guardian Angel, this is Alpha Lead. We have 8 operational personnel and 4 wounded. Position is Grid 41 RMQ 12345678990. We are running critically low on ammunition and medical supplies. Staff Sergeant Thompson's voice carried the strain of 18 hours under enemy fire, but his professionalism remained intact despite their desperate circumstances. Guardian Angel, enemy forces have established a perimeter around our position. We estimate 50 combatants with heavy weapons. They're conducting coordinated attacks every 2 hours. Mitchell processed the tactical situation quickly. 8 operational soldiers and 4 wounded meant Alpha Squad retained some defensive capability, but their ammunition shortage meant they couldn't sustain defensive operations much longer. The enemy perimeter would make extraction extremely difficult without creating a diversion that would draw hostile attention away from Alpha Squad's position. Alpha Lead, I need you to prepare your wounded for movement. We're conducting immediate extraction using stealth procedures. Can your wounded personnel travel under their own power? Guardian Angel, 2 wounded can walk with assistance. 2 require stretcher carry. Corporal Chen has been treating everyone with limited medical supplies, but we need professional medical attention within 6 hours or we're going to lose people. Mitchell's tactical assessment revealed the full complexity of her mission. She needed to infiltrate an enemy perimeter defended by 50 combatants, extract 12 soldiers including 4 wounded personnel, and move them 15 kilometers through hostile territory to friendly lines. Solo operation. No air support. No artillery support. No backup personnel. The mathematical impossibility of the mission was obvious to anyone with military experience. One person couldn't carry 4 wounded soldiers across 15 kilometers of mountainous terrain while simultaneously providing security for 8 additional personnel and maintaining tactical awareness necessary to avoid enemy contact. But Mitchell had never accepted mathematical impossibilities when American soldiers' lives were at stake. She began developing extraction procedures that would maximize Alpha Squad survival probability regardless of personal risk or conventional tactical limitations. Mitchell approached Alpha Squad's position using advanced reconnaissance techniques that had been developed through years of special operations experience. Every movement was calculated to minimize noise, visual signature, and ground disturbance that could alert enemy forces to rescue operations. The enemy perimeter consisted of fighting positions established at key terrain features that provided overlapping fields of fire around Alpha Squad's defensive position. Enemy commanders had demonstrated tactical competence by selecting positions that would be difficult to approach undetected and virtually impossible to assault with limited personnel. At 0145 hours, Mitchell established visual contact with Alpha Squad's perimeter. Through night vision optics, she could see the defensive position Alpha Squad had established using natural terrain features and improvised fortifications. The position was tactically sound but surrounded by enemy forces with superior numbers and heavier weapons. Mitchell's approach to the perimeter required 30 minutes of careful movement through terrain where a single mistake would result in detection and immediate enemy response that would doom both herself and Alpha Squad. Each step was planned and executed with precision that left nothing to chance. Staff Sergeant Thompson's whispered greeting came through her earpiece. "Guardian Angel, I have visual on your position. Welcome to our little slice of hell. Are you seriously planning to extract 12 people by yourself?" "Alpha Lead, that's exactly what I'm planning to do. Give me a complete status report on personnel and equipment." Thompson's report confirmed Mitchell's worst fears. "Guardian Angel, we have 4 soldiers requiring immediate medical evacuation. Corporal Martinez has a compound fracture of his left leg. Private Johnson has shrapnel wounds causing significant blood loss. Sergeant Williams has possible internal injuries from a blast impact. Corporal Anderson has burns covering 30% of his body surface." The wounded soldier's conditions meant that extraction would require carrying capabilities that exceeded what one person could provide over extended distances. Medical complications could worsen during movement, potentially requiring field treatment that would delay extraction and increase exposure to enemy contact. "Guardian Angel," Thompson continued, "our ammunition situation is critical. We have approximately 200 rounds of rifle ammunition and 6 grenades remaining. We can provide limited covering fire during extraction, but we can't sustain prolonged engagement with enemy forces." Mitchell assessed her options while maintaining security watch for enemy patrols. Conventional extraction procedures would require multiple personnel, air support, and artillery preparation that would suppress enemy forces during movement to friendly lines. None of these resources were available for her mission. The solution emerged from Mitchell's understanding that unconventional problems required unconventional solutions. Instead of attempting to move 12 people simultaneously, she would conduct multiple extraction trips that would remove personnel in small groups while maintaining operational security. "Alpha Lead, here's our extraction plan. I'm going to move your wounded personnel first using stretcher carries and walking assistance. Once they reach friendly lines, I'll return for your operational personnel. We'll conduct extractions in groups of 3 to 4 people." Thompson's response reflected his understanding of the tactical impossibility Mitchell was proposing. "Guardian Angel, that plan requires you to make 4 separate trips through 15 kilometers of enemy territory. The physical demands alone exceed human capabilities. Alpha Lead, the alternative is leaving American soldiers behind, and that's not acceptable. Prepare your wounded for immediate movement. We start with the most critical cases first." Mitchell began the first extraction phase by constructing improvised stretchers using available materials and Alpha Squad's equipment. Rifle slings became carrying straps. Ponchos became stretcher surfaces. Personal equipment was redistributed to create carrying systems for wounded personnel. Corporal Martinez, despite his compound fracture, demonstrated remarkable courage by minimizing his expressions of pain to avoid compromising operational security. "Ma'am, I can try to walk if it helps the mission." "Martinez, you're getting carried. Save your strength for healing." "That's an order." The movement of 4 wounded soldiers through enemy territory required tactical innovations that pushed the boundaries of individual physical capability. Mitchell would carry 1 soldier at a time while the others followed, using whatever mobility they could manage with assistance from walking wounded personnel. Private Johnson, whose shrapnel wounds had caused dangerous blood loss, required constant medical attention during movement. Mitchell administered pressure bandages and emergency medication while simultaneously maintaining navigation and security procedures. Sergeant Williams' possible internal injuries meant that movement could worsen his condition, but remaining in Alpha Squad's surrounded position guaranteed death or capture. Mitchell made the decision to risk medical complications in exchange for evacuation to professional medical facilities. Corporal Anderson's extensive burns made movement extremely painful, but Mitchell provided pain medication and constant encouragement while helping him navigate difficult terrain that challenged even uninjured personnel. The first extraction trip required 4 hours to complete, moving at speeds that prioritized stealth over efficiency. Every step was planned to minimize noise and avoid known enemy patrol routes. Mitchell's navigation skills kept the group moving toward friendly lines despite complete darkness and challenging mountain terrain. Enemy forces continued their patrol activities throughout the night, requiring Mitchell to implement hiding procedures several times when hostile personnel approached their movement route. Each contact with enemy forces increased the probability that rescue operations would be detected and Alpha Squad's remaining personnel would face increased enemy pressure. By dawn, Mitchell had successfully delivered 4 wounded soldiers to friendly lines where medical personnel immediately began life-saving treatment. Corporal Martinez required emergency surgery for his leg fracture. Private Johnson received blood transfusions that probably saved his life. Sergeant Williams' internal injuries were stabilized through immediate medical intervention. Corporal Anderson was evacuated to a burn treatment facility. Mitchell's physical condition after the first extraction trip showed signs of dangerous exhaustion. She had carried wounded soldiers across 15 kilometers of mountainous terrain while maintaining tactical security and navigation responsibilities. Her hands were bleeding from equipment friction. Her legs were cramping from excessive strain. Her back ached from carrying equipment and personnel beyond normal limits. "Mitchell," Major Harrison said during her brief rest period, "you've accomplished the impossible by extracting 4 wounded soldiers. Alpha Squad's remaining personnel have improved survival chances now that they're not caring for wounded teammates. Consider your mission completed successfully." "Sir, there are 8 American soldiers still surrounded by enemy forces. The mission isn't complete until everyone comes home." Medical personnel who examined Mitchell during her rest break were concerned about her physical condition. "Captain, you're showing signs of severe dehydration, muscle strain, and exhaustion. Attempting another 15-kilometer extraction mission could result in physical collapse." "Doctor, those soldiers have been under fire for over 24 hours. They're counting on me to bring them home. I'm going back." Mitchell's second infiltration began 2 hours after delivering the wounded soldiers to safety. Her physical condition was compromised, but her determination remained unshakable. 8 American soldiers were depending on her to complete their rescue despite impossible circumstances. The second infiltration was more dangerous because enemy forces had increased their patrol activity, possibly detecting signs of American rescue operations. Mitchell's approach required different routes and modified techniques that would avoid areas where enemy alertness had increased. Alpha Squad's remaining personnel had used the time during Mitchell's absence to improve their defensive position and conserve ammunition for the extraction operation. Staff Sergeant Thompson had organized his soldiers into 2 groups that would facilitate Mitchell's extraction procedures. "Guardian Angel, enemy activity has increased significantly since you departed. They're conducting more frequent patrols and using illumination devices that could compromise your approach. Mitchell modified her approach tactics to account for increased enemy vigilance while maintaining progress toward Alpha Squad's position. The physical demands of the second infiltration were complicated by her exhaustion from the previous extraction, but her professional training provided the mental discipline necessary to overcome physical limitations. The second extraction group consisted of 4 soldiers who retained good mobility but were exhausted from prolonged combat stress and limited food and water supplies. Their extraction would be faster than moving wounded personnel, but they would still require assistance and guidance during movement through enemy territory. Alpha Team 2 were moving immediately. Stay close, maintain noise discipline, and follow my navigation exactly. Any deviation from our route could compromise everyone's survival. Mitchell led the 4 soldiers through carefully selected terrain that provided concealment while minimizing physical demands on personnel who had been under combat stress for extended periods. Their movement speed was faster than the wounded evacuation, but Mitchell maintained security procedures that had proven successful during her first extraction. Enemy patrol encounters during the second extraction required hiding procedures that tested everyone's tactical discipline. Mitchell's leadership kept the group organized and quiet during close contact with hostile forces who were actively searching for American personnel. The second extraction was completed successfully after 3 hours of movement, bringing Alpha Squad's remaining strength to 4 operational soldiers still surrounded by enemy forces. Mitchell's physical condition was deteriorating rapidly, showing signs of dangerous exhaustion that threatened her ability to complete additional extractions. Major Harrison met Mitchell as she delivered the second group to safety. "Mitchell, you've now extracted 8 soldiers from impossible circumstances. The remaining 4 soldiers understand the tactical situation. They're prepared to attempt their own extraction or wait for conventional rescue operations." "Sir, the remaining soldiers include Corporal Chen, our medic, and 3 soldiers who have fought courageously for over 24 hours. I'm not abandoning them when they're this close to safety." Medical evaluation during Mitchell's second rest break revealed dangerous dehydration, muscle damage, and signs of physical collapse that could prove fatal if she attempted another extraction mission. Her hands were severely injured from equipment handling. Her legs showed signs of muscle tears from excessive strain. "Captain Mitchell," the medical officer reported, "your physical condition is approaching the limits of human endurance. Another extraction mission could result in collapse that would endanger both yourself and the soldiers you're trying to rescue." Mitchell understood the medical assessment, but her commitment to bringing everyone home superseded personal safety considerations. "Doctor, I need 4 fluids, pain medication, and whatever you can do to get me functional for one more mission. 4 American soldiers are counting on me." The third infiltration began 90 minutes after Mitchell's arrival with the second extraction group. Her physical condition was being sustained by medical intervention and determination that exceeded normal human capabilities. Every step toward enemy territory required conscious effort to overcome fatigue and pain. Alpha Squad's final 4 soldiers had used the extended time to prepare for extraction by organizing their remaining equipment and establishing communication procedures that would facilitate Mitchell's approach to their position. Their tactical discipline had prevented detection despite increased enemy activity. Corporal Chen, the squad medic, had maintained everyone's medical condition despite limited supplies and prolonged stress. Her professional competence had contributed significantly to Alpha Squad's survival during their ordeal behind enemy lines. "Guardian Angel, this is Alpha Lead. Final 4 personnel are ready for immediate extraction. We've destroyed all sensitive equipment and prepared for movement. Our ammunition is completely exhausted, so we have no defensive capability remaining. The final extraction would be the most dangerous because enemy forces had concentrated their efforts on locating the remaining American personnel. Patrol activity had increased dramatically, and enemy commanders were using illumination and detection methods that made concealment extremely difficult. Mitchell's approach to Alpha Squad's position required maximum stealth capabilities while her physical condition was at its lowest point. Every movement demanded conscious effort to overcome exhaustion that threatened to compromise her tactical awareness and navigation abilities. The final 4 soldiers represented Alpha Squad's leadership and most experienced personnel. Staff Sergeant Thompson had maintained squad cohesion and defensive operations despite impossible circumstances. His leadership had been essential to everyone's survival during the extended enemy siege. Alpha Final 4 were moving immediately. "This is our last chance before enemy forces detect our extraction operations. Stay close, follow my lead exactly, and maintain absolute noise discipline. Mitchell led the final extraction group through enemy territory using routes that had been modified to account for increased hostile activity. Enemy forces were conducting coordinated searches that covered most available concealment, requiring innovative tactical solutions to avoid detection. The physical demands of the third extraction pushed Mitchell beyond normal human limits. She was operating on medical intervention, determination, and professional training that had been reinforced through years of challenging operations. Each step required conscious effort to maintain forward movement. Enemy contact during the final extraction occurred twice, forcing the group to implement hiding procedures while hostile patrols passed within meters of their concealed positions. Mitchell's leadership and the soldiers' tactical discipline prevented detection that would have resulted in capture or death for everyone involved. At 0630 hours, Mitchell delivered Alpha Squad's final 4 soldiers to friendly lines, completing the most extraordinary solo rescue operation in modern military history. 12 soldiers had been extracted from enemy territory by one person conducting 3 separate infiltration and extraction missions over 12 hours of continuous operations. Mitchell collapsed immediately after confirming that all Alpha Squad personnel were safely within friendly lines. Medical personnel who had been standing by immediately began emergency treatment for dehydration, exhaustion, and injuries that had accumulated during her impossible mission. Alpha Squad's successful extraction had been achieved through individual determination, tactical expertise, and physical endurance that exceeded every military manual's definition of possible operations. Mitchell had demonstrated that American military values of never leaving soldiers behind could overcome circumstances that appeared mathematically impossible. Staff Sergeant Thompson, speaking for Alpha Squad during Mitchell's medical treatment, expressed their gratitude and amazement at what she had accomplished. Captain Mitchell single-handedly extracted 12 soldiers from a situation that conventional tactics couldn't solve. Every one of us owes our lives to her courage and refusal to abandon American soldiers regardless of the odds. Mitchell's medical recovery required 2 weeks of intensive treatment for physical injuries and exhaustion that had pushed her body beyond sustainable limits. During her recovery, she learned that Alpha Squad's successful extraction had prevented a significant intelligence compromise that would have endangered other American operations throughout the region. The 4 wounded soldiers Mitchell had extracted during her first trip all made complete recoveries due to the prompt medical attention they received. Corporal Martinez retained full use of his leg after surgery. Private Johnson recovered completely from his blood loss. Sergeant Williams' internal injuries healed without permanent complications. Corporal Anderson's burns healed with minimal scarring. Alpha Squad's extraction became legendary throughout special operations communities as an example of what individual determination could accomplish when American soldiers' lives were at stake. Mitchell's tactical innovations and physical endurance provided case study material for advanced military training programs. Mitchell received the Medal of Honor, the military's highest decoration for valor, in recognition of her extraordinary solo rescue operation that saved 12 American lives under impossible circumstances. The citation highlighted her tactical brilliance, physical courage, and unbreakable commitment to the principle of never leaving soldiers behind. During the award ceremony, attended by senior military leadership and Alpha Squad personnel, the Secretary of Defense spoke about the significance of Mitchell's actions. Captain Mitchell's solo extraction of 12 soldiers from enemy territory represents the finest traditions of American military service. Her actions remind us why we serve and what we're willing to sacrifice for our fellow Americans. Mitchell's personal reflection on the mission focused on the human cost that military service demanded from both soldiers and their families. Her 3 extraction missions had required her to risk everything for fellow soldiers, understanding that failure would have resulted in 12 families receiving death notifications. The mission wasn't about tactics or equipment, Mitchell explained during interviews after her recovery. It was about understanding that every soldier matters, every life has value, and sometimes doing the right thing requires attempting what everyone else considers impossible. Alpha Squad members maintained close relationships with Mitchell throughout their subsequent military careers and civilian lives. Their shared experience had created bonds that extended far beyond military service into personal friendships, professional networks, and mutual support systems. Years later, When Mitchell reflected on her decision to attempt the impossible solo extraction, she understood that her actions had been driven by fundamental military values that transcended tactical considerations, personal safety, and conventional limitations. The lives of fellow soldiers had been more important than any regulation or standard procedure. Mitchell continued her military career in special operations and rescue mission development, applying lessons learned during Alpha Squad's extraction to develop improved procedures that would enable future success during similar crisis situations. Her expertise became invaluable for training other personnel and planning operations where conventional approaches might prove inadequate. The psychological impact of conducting 3 solo extraction missions through enemy territory created lasting changes in Mitchell's understanding of leadership, individual capability, and human endurance under extreme circumstances. She learned that ordinary soldiers could accomplish extraordinary things when motivated by commitment to fellow military personnel. Mitchell's family understood that their wife and mother had risked everything to save 12 other families from experiencing the loss and grief that military service could create. Her children grew up understanding that heroism sometimes required difficult choices and that their mother had chosen other people's welfare over her own safety. Alpha Squad's successful extraction demonstrated that American military values of mutual support, individual sacrifice, and never abandoning fellow soldiers could overcome circumstances that appeared tactically impossible. Mitchell's actions proved that sometimes the most important missions were won through determination and courage rather than superior numbers or advanced technology. And that's Captain Sarah Mitchell's night extraction story, the officer who brought 12 soldiers home against impossible odds. Here at Last Signal Stories, we believe every soldier's final message deserves to be heard. If this story of courage, determination, and unbreakable commitment moved you, hit subscribe for more military stories. Drop a comment below. Would you have attempted the same impossible mission? Until next time, stay tuned for the signal.